civilians rally around one another. We support one another. We are resilient. We're strong.
There are a lot of people that are hurting today. Then we've got to do what we have done these last 3 years after everything. We've got to wrap our arms around these families. And if we have a place to focus our energy, I hope it is to surround them with the love and the compassion we have been so good at showing one another.
Monday's shooting at Old National Bank on East Main Street has left our city shaken. It was something unimaginable.
It's something that went from it won't happen here to it happened here. Louisville at the center of the nation's latest mass shooting. This is Tragedy in Louisville, a reflection. And we thank you for being with us here tonight at 6:30. Over the next 30 minutes, we will pay tribute to the victims of Monday's shooting. We will honor them in what we hope is a small and impactful way here.
We'll also look at the first responders, hospital staff, the calls for action, and how you can help those impacted by the shooting. But first, we honor the 5 lives lost.
57-year-old Dina Eckert was a bank administrator at Old National. Her obituary said she was selfless and found joy in loving her family, friends, and everyone she came across. Mayor Craig Greenberg knew her personally and described her as a wonderful and kind woman. Eckert leaves behind 2 children and her husband of 28 years. She was laid to rest earlier today.
45-year-old Juliana Farmer recently moved to Louisville for a new start. She was a loan analyst for Old National. Farmer was a mother, grandmother, sister, daughter, and friend. She was eager to meet her 5th grandbaby this fall. Funeral arrangements for Farmer are still being planned.
63-year-old Tommy Elliott was the bank's senior vice president. The UK alum was well known within local and state government. Elliott was a member of Mayor Craig Greenberg's transition team. Governor Andy Beshear said Elliott gave him advice on being a good dad and also helped him get into law and the governor's office. Elliott was known for his acts of kindness, dad jokes, and volunteerism. He was laid to rest this afternoon.
64-year-old Jim Tutt was a senior VP for the bank and served in several community positions throughout the years. Friends and coworkers describe him as a master of bringing people together. He was a UK fan and led annual missions for more than a decade, delivering humanitarian aid and the message of Christ to people in the Dominican Republic. Tutt was a husband, father, and grandfather. His funeral will be held Sunday.
And a 40-year-old Joshua Barrick was a senior executive at Old National. Barrick was a parishioner at Holy Trinity Catholic Church in St. Matthews. His pastor remembered him as someone always willing to help. Barrick was described as a truly remarkable soul, and he would do anything for anyone. He leaves behind a wife and 2 young children. A funeral mass for Barrick is tomorrow.
Well, tributes to the victims have been pouring in all week.
Yeah, from government officials who knew those victims to close friends and those who worked with them at the bank.
He was a committed family person. He'd like to travel and include his family in those travels. He had a sailboat that he and his son would take out. That was a big, both of them, as I would talk to them individually, would always mention that they got to go sailing and hang out together.
And I believe in heaven, which means that while the body is mortal, the soul is eternal. And Tommy, I will see you again, and we will see all of these incredible individuals again.
We became very good friends. Tommy is first of all, he's an amazing father and husband to his children and to his wife, Marianne. He is a great friend.
The memorial on the steps of the Old National Bank has been growing all week right there at 300 and East Main. It started with a few flowers, then a heart made out of roses. 5 wooden crosses were added. There are now balloons, notes, and candles, all to remember Monday's shooting and the lives lost, and all those people forever impacted.
And thousands of people packed the plaza at the Muhammad Ali Center Wednesday evening to pay tribute, not just for the 5 people killed, but the 8 others who were also hurt. Scott, we were there. It was so powerful and emotional.
Yeah, more than 1,000 people for sure packed in there. It was a chance for grieving, remembering, and coming together as a community.
We are here to remember and celebrate the lives of 5 members of the Old National family and to wrap our arms around and grieve with all of those who loved and cared for them.
The events on Monday were truly a shock to the conscience and to the soul of this city.
I am having tough time to find words to console the victims, the survivors, and the loved ones of this senseless act of violence. Why we can't find a solution to this cancer of mass shootings, which is eating away our children, adults, and seniors at a lightning speed.
I lost one of my best friends on Monday. But I've got 2 friends and more that survived because LMPD got there in about 3 minutes. I want to thank you all.
When you feel broken and defeated, like we all do now, this is the most important moment for you to find hope. Because it is only through hope that you can find the strength to take action, and it is only through action that change will ever come.
And a lot of LMPD officers were there, and of course they were there also to honor LMPD officers Corey Galloway and Nicholas Wilt. They were the first 2 officers to get to the bank on Monday morning. They arrived just 3 minutes after that first 911 call.
Take a look at police body camera video from Galloway's camera. He is an LMPD field training officer. Wilt graduated from the academy just 11 days before that shooting. Once those officers went up the steps, the shooter started firing right at them. Wilt was shot in the head, and he remains in critical condition in the hospital. Galloway, grazed by a bullet, was treated and released. Galloway eventually shot and killed the shooter. Wilt, at age 26, already dedicating his life to public service.
He's the type of guy that would give his shirt off his back if he needed help. He never hesitated. It didn't matter what time of day or night, what kind of trouble it is. He'd always sit there and he'd always listen.
A 3rd officer was also injured but has not been identified.
And we've heard this next week is so critical for Officer Wilt with that gunshot wound to the head. A lot of prayers across this community and country for him as he remains in the hospital. And his brother, twin brother, in the police academy will be on the force in a matter of months. Hospital workers at U of L Health have been praised for their response to the shooting.
Initially, U of L Health took in 9 patients. 1 died. 2 are still in the hospital tonight, including Officer Wilt, as we've told you. U of L Health Chief Medical Officer Dr. Jason Smith said he takes pride in the response of the trauma center staff at the hospital. He said with 9 patients coming in at the exact same time, they were able to provide immediate care to all of them. Of the 9 patients, 5 people had been shot. Smith talked this week about the bank shooting, but also how the hospital handles consistent violence here in Louisville.
We are not special in the fact that gun violence is impacting our cities. It is simply getting to the point where this is becoming untenable with the healthcare system and the amount of resources and people that are being affected by this. So it's not Louisville, it's everywhere right now.
While family, friends, and coworkers deal with grief, the community has been mourning with them.
Yeah, the city sent dozens of counselors to area churches this week, and several other churches offered grief services.
Some organizations that regularly deal with grief also provided some advice for how everyone can process this week's events.
It's really what our heart's about, is trying to help people navigate it, because this is a journey. This doesn't go away. This is something that you learn to live with. It's something that changes over time.
We are such a generous community, and just about everyone in Louisville wants to help in some way.
And there are a lot of ways to do it. Next to the fundraisers, the blood drives, and other ways you can help the victims and the people impacted by the shooting. When tragedy in Louisville, a reflection continues.
One of the biggest things people have been asking this week is how to help the victims. Several families and friends of those victims have set up fundraisers. You see it there. The family of Juliana Farmer set up a GoFundMe just a few days ago. You can donate to help the family and share that page with others.
There's also a GoFundMe for the family of Josh Barrick. It was created by a friend of the family. The Louisville Metro Police Foundation set up a fund to raise money for LMPD officer Nick Wilt, who's in the hospital. That money will help cover the hospital and recovery expenses. The foundation also accepting money for all the shooting victims. You can donate on the foundation's website or Facebook page.
A website for donations has also been set up for Dina Eckert's family. It is on the Give, Send, Go website, which also accepts prayer requests. We have links to all of these fundraisers on our website, WDRB.com.
And in the midst of this tragedy, it's hard to believe, but there are people who will try to take advantage of the situation.
The Better Business Bureau has some things to keep in mind as you think about ways you can help. First, take the time to verify the charity by doing a little research before you donate. Be wary of newly created organizations and opt for well-established organizations instead. Most states require charities to register with a government agency before they can accept any donations. So if they are not registered, that is a red flag. And of course, watch out for those vague appeals that don't specify how your donation will be used.
Another great way to help is by donating blood. We learned earlier this week that U of L Health used more than 170 units of blood. Both the Kentucky Blood Center and the American Red Cross have locations across Louisville. Most blood donations take less than an hour.
There's also a blood drive happening tomorrow at Lynn Family Stadium. It's from noon to 4. You can park in the purple lot. Appointments are recommended, but walk-ins will be accepted.
And there's a car show coming up Sunday to benefit the family of LMPD officer Nicholas Wilt. It's at 5520 Fern Valley Road in HIGHVIEW. That's from noon until 6. The cost is $5 per car. A great way to gather and help out the Wilt family.
Another way to help is by providing any information, pictures, or video to the FBI. They've created this website where anyone who may have been around the bank on Monday can submit information. You can find it at fbi.gov/bank shooting. You can also call LMPD's tip line and submit information right now on WDRB.com and on our WDRB News app. We have all those links and information with all of the different ways you can help out right now. Well, next, we'll take a look at the call to action across our city and the state.
And it's not just from a legal standpoint on guns, but also mental health and taking care of each other.
We have to take action now. We need short-term action to end this gun violence epidemic now, so fewer people die on our streets and in our banks and in our schools and in our churches.
One thing a number of people have mentioned this week is how to prevent another tragedy like this.
And while we know there are political differences, lawmakers at the state and federal level from both parties do have some common ground.
People's lives aren't political. Public safety isn't political. Put those policies in place that put people first. People over guns, kids over guns, public safety over guns.
If we're going to have an adult conversation about this, which is what I think we ought to have, then we need to talk about a lot of different things.
Louisville Mayor Craig Greenberg, himself a victim of gun violence, has also called for tighter gun control legislation.
And last month, Kentucky lawmakers passed a bill that makes Kentucky a Second Amendment sanctuary state. Governor Andy Beshear didn't sign or veto that bill, and it became law on March 28th.
The law means the state cannot enforce any federal firearms bans or regulations. But in the aftermath of Monday's bank shooting, another discussion about guns is likely coming at the State House.
Yeah, in an interview this week, Governor Beshear believes Kentucky needs what's called a red flag law.
I believe we can respect and honor people's Second Amendment rights to protect themselves and their family, but at the same time, at least take a step so that we can intervene when we know somebody's about to go out and murder a whole bunch of people. You know, a red flag law involves the court system. It ensures that everybody's rights are protected, that evidence is heard. It has every check on it that we could ask for, but at least it lets us stop that next individual, at least when we know, before they murder people. And listen, I know people will say that wouldn't have stopped this situation, and it probably wouldn't have. Maybe it will the next one. I don't want another family to go through this.
19 states, including Indiana, have those red flag laws. The law essentially allows a court to keep guns away from a person who shows signs of being a danger to other people or even themselves. The specifics, this is the hard part. These laws are all a little bit different. Who can make those determinations to a court? And that varies from state to state.
There are some steps Kentucky lawmakers took in the most recent legislative session to improve mental health care in the Commonwealth. One was House Bill 56, which created regional community service programs all over Kentucky. Those centers will each serve certain counties. They'll focus on behavioral and mental health services.
Kentucky's Lieutenant Governor announced earlier this year more than $18 million in federal funding for mental health services at schools across the state. That money will be used to hire more counselors at those schools and expand mental health services. The money will increase mental health programs to more than 100,000 students. And after the break, some final thoughts on this week's bank shooting.
But now here's a look at the Big 4 Bridge. It was lit up in blue and yellow. The colors changed earlier this week to honor those bank shooting victims, LMPD, first responders, and everyone impacted by this tragedy. Well, this week has just been so tough and it really feels so heavy, but I have hope because I've seen our community come together in such a beautiful way this week, wrapping our arms around one another at a time when we really just need that sense of community. Today, I'm so proud to be a Louisvillian.
Yeah, and that will go on and on, we know, for weeks and months to come. So many people impacted by this, and it'll never make sense. No matter what tests come out or what investigations reveal, it will just never make sense what happened on Monday, but it will have this lasting impact. And I know as we get ready to celebrate Thunder and Derby and all the joy this city has this time of year, that will be on the minds of those who go to those events too. And I think the hugs will be a little extra special, a little extra tight, and continue those prayers for Officer Wilt and all those impacted by the tragedy. We thank you for joining us here tonight.
We're strong enough to handle this, just like we've been strong enough to handle everything.
It's important that we take time to acknowledge those losses and what they mean for us as people and as a community.
Listen for one moment, and what you hear is the language of grief.
It says a lot about a community when we can come together in the face of such darkness and show that light still exists. Not only does it still exist, but light trumps the darkness.